Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Wild Man Revolution podcast. And um, it's interesting the timing of this one. I've got a guest on, Mr. Aaron Baldock, who was actually the first guest that I had on the podcast just a tick over a year ago. And holy shit, 12 months has already gone for this podcast. I haven't even celebrated that yet. But in that 12 months, a lot has probably transpired in my world. I know in our guest Aaron's world, and probably in your world for the listener or the viewer out there. But Aaron, it's epic to have you back, brother.
Thank you, brother. It's an honor once again. And I have to say, the caliber of man that you've had on to interview since that initial podcast that we had, I've just been blown away by the depth of knowledge and wisdom and, a lot of value. So it's an honor to be invited back on again.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you, brother. Now, we're good mates, of course. We have to disclose that information. We do talk
Yeah.
a lot about a number of things, and we have interacted a lot over the last year. But so we've been privy to a lot of the growth and evolution in our own sort of worlds and what we've seen reflected around us. One of the big things that I know has transpired this year for me is I got married. There, well, not that finger. Sorry, viewers, but that one. Put a ring on it. But from that wedding, you played a really, really special role with your Queen Greer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to call it facilitator, because it wasn't your traditional wedding. I'll make that really, really clear.
Yeah.
Celebrant. Not only was I super grateful to have you there, because it was like this toss up between, well, like, I don't want a best man because I got best men. But to have you as celebrant and again have Greer by your side, that was super special for me, and it's probably been the highlight of my year. I'll put that in there. We're recording this, so I can say that.
That's pretty
but
good.
it was because the lead up to that, even a lot of personal stuff that was coming up for me around having a wedding or committing, and I think that was a big thing from it, and being witnessed in the commitment, and actually for you facilitating that commitment ceremony. What transpired after that was probably a deep, intense integration period for me that lasted for months.
Yeah.
Told me that it was like actually a big fucking deal for me. That's been the highlight of my year. We can talk a little bit about the wedding there, but what about the last 12 months for you? What's been the highlight?
I would be seeing the growth and blossoming of my son, Kaizen. He's just an absolute being of light, and that has definitely been my highlight. And being a master of ceremony for you, Steve, was definitely a highlight. And I'm not surprised to hear that it was actually a really powerful activation because, we open sacred space and we don't need a church. We don't need to be ordained by a man in funny clothes and making a bond as a certificate that the government says is official. We only need the depth of our presence, a genuine heart connection, and just basic understanding of how to open sacred space and ceremony. And so, yeah, there was a lot of intention went into that ceremony. I consider myself a holy man, man of God, man of presence, and it was a co-creation.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I love how you segued out of your highlight of the year straight back into my wedding. My significance is like loving this. But I had the pleasure of actually meeting young Kaizen. He hung out with my young bloke, River. Holy shit, they definitely came in on the same starship or star
Yeah,
or planet or
absolutely.
wherever they fucking come from. Them little tricksters were hanging out somewhere in the realm waiting to be incarnated here and to teach us and guide us. I definitely know that. And he's definitely got a lot of powerful energy and presence. So
Mm.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm the same with River, man. Like each day is just like blowing my mind. Even last night, it's the ups and downs of it all too in the growth. Like last night, we went and watched a movie, Black Panther, loved it, but he fell asleep halfway through and complained of a sore stomach. And here I am holding him at the end of the movie, projectile vomiting everywhere.
Oh God.
The way he handled it and afterwards and got through it, I'm like, holy shit, well done, dude.
Yeah.
I stunk like the worst spew ever,
Yeah.
but I'm like, here he was being strong and everything, and he's just like, what's next? I'm like, oh, it's
Yeah.
just surprises every day. Are
Yeah.
you finding that with Kaizen? There's like these different ways that you're seeing and viewing things
Oh,
within him.
without a doubt, man. The other day we went to the supermarket and they've got those little baskets that are on wheels, and he just picks one up and he's strutting around with no shirt on, and he's just going, strawberries, blueberries, and people are looking at him like, who's this kid? He's getting the kombucha, goes, I want that one. Just in he goes, struts up to pay at the counter, and I mean, he's not even 3 yet, and he's just like, there's already this he's just got that strength, he's just got so much joy, and he has been my mission and my purpose for the last 3 or so years. And, you know, to tie it back in with what we've spoken about previously, you know, it was interesting. I just want to go back to, you know, our first podcast, Steve, where we set the intention to speak of like Christ consciousness. And it was interesting because what transpired is we actually talked about relationship and triggers and processing triggers. And I see a key role for us as men, and you and me in particular with Kaizen and River, is to really embody the divine father principle. And the divine father, where it's, you know, we hold the masculine virtues in their divine expression. And in this way, we're clearing out the patriarchy and all the distortions around masculine energy, and most importantly, balancing it with our feminine. And so where we are in relationship and we have these triggers come up, just to put last podcast into context, is when we can process these triggers, we're coming into a greater state of wholeness and inner balance within, of masculine and feminine, to birth our own inner child, which is the Christ light. It's actually the purity of our spirit. And when you look in a baby's eyes, where there's no conditioning, there's no ego, that's pure spirit. That's the Christ. That's what we're birthing within through the recalibration, the rebalancing of the masculine and feminine energies within us. And when we do this as fathers, then it means we are bringing a depth of presence to our children. We're not just strong, but we're also compassionate. We're joyful, we're loving, we're bringing all these balanced virtues, and our kids are flourishing as a result. And I see it with River, and I saw it with Kaizen when we went camping. And I am beyond excited to watch these young men grow into who they're destined to be, because we're creating the environment for them to remember who they are, why they're here, the truth of who they are. And they're going to bypass years of forgetting and unconsciousness and step into their power at a much younger age, and to serve a very big purpose. So I just wanted to drop that in there.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you for mentioning the very first episode. Not only was it massive value, you're going to see how far we've both come in the last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Please go check that out, guys. It is on the YouTube channel, or go back through Spotify. Very first episode. Super, super deep to start the whole thing, and very contrasting to a lot of the other men I've had on, which is the intent of this. Again, the Wild Man Revolution, the podcast is highlighting men doing great things in the world. And I think one thing that you're doing great is like being a father. You've got a different dynamic in the family and everything there. And you're talking about processing triggers. I think they've probably come pretty consistently for you. But again, having that, not just the mind knowledge or how to process things, giving yourself the space to be able to go, okay, I actually need to feel my way through this and navigate that, which is, I think it's a new concept for a lot of men or fathers out there. It definitely wasn't something that's been passed down from generation to generation, I don't think. And I think what we're doing too is like, sometimes we don't get it right. We don't have the map. We don't have the path or the guidance. We have our own embodiment tools. Like, we've had to unlearn. I love how you put, they're going to bypass a lot of the unlearning they're going to need to do, because we've learned so much in the way we're showing up in the world now. They're going to model that, and it's going to help them. And as I was saying that, I think of my path, I truly believe now that I'm 44 now. I only just got married. I only had River, he's 4 years old. I truly believe I needed to get to a certain point in my life to unlearn a certain amount to be ready to have the space, or River to come here and like guide me. I really feel that now. I wasn't ready to have a kid in my 20s anyway. Holy fuck.
Not you, Steve.
Jesus, what would have that been like? Um, you're getting married at the start of next year too, which I
I
think is
am.
freaking awesome. Like,
Yeah.
and I think this is sort of part of my integration too, to for you guys to hold the space and be master of ceremony for our what I seen was an event. Really, it was like a really big commitment for not just us, for you guys, like opening the space and the people who are there, not just witnessing, like immersed in it. And I think my integration after that is still going, and like going down to witness you guys in whatever magical ceremony that is definitely going to transpire for you. I'm actually my certainty needs are sort of a bit rocked by, I know this is going to be, there's probably going to be something very unknown with how you go about it. But it's exciting me to be able to go down and witness you guys with whatever you, I think the depth of commitment you actually express.
Yeah.
And it's one thing I appreciate about you is how you are very deep and very clear in expression. But what's coming up for you leading into the wedding, man?
No. What has been? It's been I would say earlier in this year, I was probably getting a bit sick of hearing about it all the time. And I actually went and did open ceremony for another couple just around the time we went camping, you and I. It would have been about 6 or 8 weeks ago now. And I actually went and did that by myself because Greer needed to travel to Cairns to meet her daughters up there who'd been on holiday with their father. And one of the things I recognised, I'm glad I went, but the reason I'm glad is because I recognise that I'm only going to do that kind of ceremony with Greer by my side. It's not something I do solo, because what we embody and express are the codes of divine union, of the divine father, divine mother principle within us as individuals, but then it's also mirrored in our relationship and then trinitized into our son with Kaizen. So, you know, what's coming up is I would say our relationship is as solid as ever. It's actually been more of a resurrection and rebirth of who we are as individuals. And yeah, for me, there's been a lot around my capacity to provide and knowing I'm lovable enough exactly as I am and not for what I do and what I provide, which is a very deep program embedded into men from the patriarchy era that we're evolving out to. And on a side note, we're evolving out of that and we're evolving into the holyarchy. People think we're going to regress into a matriarchy or some kind of patriarchy again. It's not. We are evolving into the holyarchy of men and women standing side by side in their power and wholeness. And so anything that's coming up is to balance these principles within us, this masculine and feminine. So, you know, this last lunar eclipse, I had a lot of shadow come up over the weekend, and it manifested in me having extreme fatigue and being on the couch and just being completely debilitated, and a lot of shame coming up, the emotion of shame coming up, of beliefs that there's something wrong with me, I'm not good enough. There was all these, and again, it all went back to inner child stuff of me being really sick as a baby and as a toddler, and causing a lot of stress and heartache for my parents. And the shame around that, there were still layers I needed to feel and integrate to come back into balance, because when we have these unprocessed traumas, that's what creates us to be out of balance and think that we have to do, like, overcompensate and be in that like high achieving state of being where we're actually trying to avoid our shame and be more than human, which is definitely something I traversed. And so it was just another layer over the weekend of inner child healing, feeling the depths of my shame, being able to trust that all my needs will be provided for, regardless of how little or how much I do. So there was fear in there around having needs met, of basic needs, you know, money stuff, I'll speak it, not providing enough, not doing enough, not being mad enough, seeing Greer in her power out in the world, and feeling like the masculine feminine principle was out of balance within our relationship, and again the shame around that. So there was layers and layers. So anything that does come up again is just to recalibrate that inner union, which is going to manifest in our outer union. Yeah. And you're right, like our ceremony is going to be a celebration of the truth of love and an expression of that. It's our marriage is simply a symbolic gesture of something that happens within all of us, and therefore everyone that's there is going to receive a transmission of what we embody as individuals and as a relationship. It is very interesting, the timing of this podcast now, Steve, because like just earlier this morning I had a session with a lady who uses the last name Christos. She's in America, Alilia Christos. And I came into contact with her through a friend of a friend because Greer felt ready to take on that title as her last name, but I didn't feel ready. And I feel confident to share with you guys that when I went into it and explored it, there was fears of being misunderstood, being judged, and not wanting to be associated with Catholicism or Christianity, which I grew up, Catholic school, and just thought it was all bullshit. There was fears around being misunderstood by my parents, and not wanting them to feel like I'm rejecting them because I'm going to change my last name to Christos. And there was also like a thing around like still being too young in this, physical form. And yet the truth of me has known for years that there's something about the Christ energy and the truth of the Christ, the Christos, away from all the distortions and the Bible and Catholicism and all the distortions and lies and everything that's been perpetuated in the name of Christ. It in the end, they're all lies and distortions, and nothing can ever be as powerful as the truth. And the truth is that the Christ is simply the truth of love, and walking that path and taking on the title of a Christ or a Christos is walking the path of love and seeing through those attacks or judgments or misunderstandings, seeing through them, forgiving them, because they're not based in truth, they're a distortion. And that's where the wisdom of forgiveness comes through in the Christ teachings. And I'm not saying I'm Christian, I'm not saying I'm Catholic, I'm saying I'm here to live and know the truth for myself and express it. And that's the truth of love. And that's what will be a key intention for our wedding and our ceremony.
One thing no one can ever accuse you of is like being on the surface level, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
you're a deep motherfucker.
It just comes
That's a compliment.
Authentic, man.
Yeah.
I'll go back to when I didn't used to be, Steve. I used to be very surface level, in my ego and afraid of speaking my truth, and would lie and make up stories so people thought better of me. I was so caught up in people accepting and liking me that I'd just put out this false bravado and this image so that people would like me. But when that like would come, it would go to the image. It would never penetrate to the core of me. And I recognized when I was 21 and had an awakening of sorts, that if I truly want to actually receive that love, I've got to actually get rid of the image and be real and be me. And that means I got to be the same person around my family and my friends, because I was one type of Aaron when he was out partying, and then a completely different Aaron and a different role and persona and identity around my family. And so I've been walking the path of authenticity for 10 years now. So that's where the depth comes from. It's nothing out of the ordinary other than genuine authenticity.
Yeah, and I love and appreciate that about you, man. It's like, again, I think age doesn't come into it. Like, even though you were 21 and that, like, you've been a teacher for me and a guide for me at certain times has been super beneficial. And I think that comes from your wisdom and your embodiment, and the way you do go to the depths to explore yourself without it being this endless journey. It's like there's always some sort of completion with it. There's also some sort of knowing with it. And I definitely appreciate that. And I'm definitely not going to judge you if you change your last name, but I might take the piss every now and then. Okay?
Yeah, I know. That's fine. I'm ready for it. I'm integrating.
I'll just feel it deflect and I'll be like, oh.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. And I think like what you're doing and what a lot of others are doing, like be it as fathers, be it as men, be it as mothers, as women, or whatever in the family unit, we are leading ourselves right now from that place of coming back to our own wholeness, and we're leading from that place of integrity with that and being congruent with our truth, whatever that is at the time, and being our best at being in integrity. Again, I put my hand up. I'm not always fucking in integrity. People bandy integrity around like they're fucking perfect. No, we have stuff come up, and sometimes we go off the path or we go out of alignment, and it's always that intent to come back and like come back to who we are. So integration, I want to touch on that a bit, because after the wedding, it's been fascinating. I always talk about traveling the world, going and doing plant medicines and all the fun shit that I've done over the last nearly decade now. And there's always this period where I can struggle, or I can go into like extended dark nights of the soul. And that after the wedding, this was very different for me. I definitely did have a lot of challenges, but I felt the challenges were things that I was just being shown that were out of alignment to the commitments I made. Very different than the past. So there was a lot of unknowns in my integration period where I've got to learn a new tool or practice to integrate. But this time was different, and I saw it for what it was. I'm like, dude, you just like literally done some deep fucking commitments. Some of your world's probably out of alignment. And it was interesting. Like over months, I was super patient, and I'm seeing what's manifest out of that now. My relationship was epic before, but it is phenomenal now. Like, it is fucking phenomenal. On a personal level, I've never felt more, you could use the word whole. So you could use that. I witnessed my queen Chi. I've never seen her shining so much. Some people say it's because she got the ring on the finger, but no, it's like, I know she's gone through a deep process as well and come into it. And I share this because I think there's a lot of people out there that are afraid of commitment. Simple. It doesn't have to be deep or anything. A lot of people are afraid of that, so they won't fully commit to themselves, commit to their truth, and even commit to another person. Well, have you got anything to talk to any of that I've shared there?
Yeah, without a doubt, the big word that was coming through is trust. Like, you allowed yourself to have that integration period and not go and start doing another modality, doing another training. You had trust because, at a deeper level, you process some kind of fears where you trusted in yourself that you could provide. You trusted that what you've done is enough. And then that trust manifests and mirrors in your relationship, where your woman feels the trust. She trusts you more because of your commitment, your word. She opens more. It's very powerful to explore this theme of trust and what makes us not trust. And it's always fear. And if we look at what our society is run on and conditioned to run on, it's fear. Fear of missing out, fear of not having enough, whatever, fear of not having our needs met. I don't have to go too deep into it to make it obvious of where fear can control us. And yet it is absolutely crucial that if we want to live in this space of wholeness, which is our most loving expression, then fear is always going to be in the way. And what would stop someone committing is fear. Lack of trust in self, trust in love, trust in their heart, could be too in their mind, over-analyzing. That again comes back to trauma in the body and not feeling safe in the body and feeling stuck in the head. Like to fully feel our hearts, we've got to be able to embody and feel safe in our body and feel safe to feel the feeling nature. When there's a higher degree of trauma, then we also get stuck in our heads and over-analyzing. That's where, again, anxiety comes from, stuck in the mind because of fear and tenseness in the nervous system. And when we can relax, again, when we trust in life, we trust in ourselves, we trust in our partner, we can relax, we open, we can feel more, we can hear the calling of our heart, the whispers of our soul, and we use the mind to create a plan and a structure around where our heart and soul is guiding us. And that's how we come into your topic, integration. For me, integration is bringing all these different parts of ourselves. And this is where, bringing the spiritual dimension, that we are multi-dimensional. These dimensions are a mind, a heart, a masculine, a feminine, an inner child. We can come into other aspects of ourselves, our warrior nature, our king nature, our magician archetype. These are all aspects that when we are fully integrated, we can tap into and express. Like I've got a strong lover nature that I can express with my beloved. I've got a strong warrior nature that I express in the gym. I've got a strong magician archetype that I bring into ceremony and, working with the elements or whatever it is. That's my spiritual practice, where the magician is about manifesting using consciousness. So, integration is trust. And when we trust, we open and we access the deeper multidimensional nature of ourselves.
Yeah, love that. Love that. It's interesting. When I knew we were going to have the podcast today, I was actually thinking of picking up the book. What is it? The Warrior, the King, the Magician, and the Lover, or whatever.
Yeah.
If they're in order or not. I love that book. It's just like breaking down the archetypes and what you mentioned there. It's actually helped me a lot. Old book, but if anything resonates like from what Aaron's saying there, or it intrigues you, like pick up a book, guys. There's plenty of information out there if you're getting a bit curious. And one of the big things I know on my journey, we can go into, is like, I've trusted more, I've relaxed more on that, but I get therapy. I'll work on, like, started diving into the trauma stuff a few years back, mainly because of Chaitanya. She's been exceptional on her own journey, having a lot of like sexual abuse and trauma when she's young. But at the same time, realizing and understanding our body does store all that. And it's been a journey. Even when I got into breath work and qigong and yoga, like it's probably 6 or 7 years now, it was to somatically start to express that stuck energy or move it. And I know this year really diving in and allowing myself to be supported and be guided to release a lot of my trauma from my own body without me doing it through my own practices. And that, like, some of the therapy sessions I've had have been massive this year. And it still does come from that place of trust and feeling safe enough in my own body to go, okay, allowing it and understanding the nervous system and fight or flight and all these things that we're not taught really helps. There's a really good book out there. I don't know if you've ever picked it up. I think it's by Dr. Levine. I don't know if his name's Peter Levine or something like that. It's focused on trauma, but he shares some really great experience and stories.
The Body Keeps the Score.
He's got a couple of books. I think that's one of them. Yeah. That might have been the first one, but that really opened my eyes. I had to read it 3 times because I'm like, the first time I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? The second time I was like, I sort of get this. The third time I'm like, holy shit. because it's like everything in society now. We're indoctrinated into a way of thinking or a way of, well, this is what it is. Pharmaceutical industry is taken over. Schooling system's been taken over. We don't really understand the body like we should. Like even doctors,
Yeah.
it's been highlighted in the last couple of years. Most of them are fucking network marketers.
Yeah.
They're in pyramid fucking schemes. You're a
Yes,
doctor
amen.
and doing a great job.
Yeah.
Cool. But if you're triggered by that and you're a doctor, fucking time to whatever. Anyway,
Question your sources. Yeah. It's beautiful you raise this, Steve, because I think everything has its place. And, I went and had therapy as a teenager, went and saw a psychologist, was going through a really dark time. And, that assisted in, in some ways. And, of all people, like if we're really looking to do some healing, we need to address it from a multi-dimensional nature. And that means that we don't just talk about it, we learn about the somatic experience and where emotions are stored in the body. I go see a chiropractor, and it only took me a few weeks of going, and I said to him, there's an emotional release component to this, isn't there? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. Because I was noticing like so much when I'd get an adjustment in my body, then there was a stuck emotion that had to be processed. And thankfully I've been, so committed and deep into this journey. I had the awareness of how to process it and integrate it, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't understand that this emotion is arising because it's trapped in the body, and we actually need to just learn how to, like, first of all, understand that it's safe to feel. Like, we can come into the mental body and the mind and understand that half the problem at the beginning is recognizing that we have these beliefs that it's wrong to feel, it's shameful, like especially as men, like that whole don't cry thing or don't express it. So we've got to work through those core beliefs around the feeling body and the emotional body. And then, like, if you go down the path long enough, eventually you're going to come up against some kind of like, oh, this is from a past life, or this is from my ancestors. Like, and then you realize, like, we are processing so much in this lifetime because of what we're evolving into, and because what's happening energetically on this earth plane. Like, there is so much going on at an unseen level, that for those that are only in the 3D, it's only going to get more turbulent, more chaotic, more fearful, because none of it's going to make sense because of the multidimensional nature, not just of us, but also of reality. Like, if we want to extend this out and bring the awareness of, put it in the context of, why is all this healing stuff coming up now? Why are we the first in the lineage of our ancestors for 7-10 generations? Why is it us? And it's because that there's a shift happening in the cosmos around us, where the frequency and the consciousness of the whole planet is shifting. And I'm not saying this is, new agey, dawn of Aquarius, everything's just going to turn into love and light. Not everyone's going to make the shift. And that's okay, because at a higher plane, all is one. And those of us that are here for the shift are going to make the shift. And if, I dare say, if people are listening and have continued to listen to this podcast up until now, they're here for the shift and they're going to make the shift. Those that are staying within the old system and structure and paradigm, I can't say what's their destiny. I can only say with absolute certainty that for those of us that are embarking on this healing journey, and therefore coming into a deeper place of multidimensional wholeness and love, are going to be at a different frequency bandwidth, where we will transcend the fear, the shame, the anger, the rage. Part of the key to transcending that is actually mastering those emotions by feeling them, and by integrating them. Therefore, they have no power over us. We have the emotional mastery, and it's reflected in our physical body. We'll become lighter. We'll start to activate dormant capacities. Like, I dare say that we're going to start to evolve into the capacity to have telepathy and other gifts that have been shut down when we've been in a fallen state. We're resurrecting, just like, I'm not saying I don't subscribe to the story of Jesus, but there is a theme through the Christ story of resurrection, and I believe we're doing this as a collective.
Wish it would only take 3 days, like the Jesus Christ story.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yippee! No, awesome, brother, awesome. I want to do segue now, man, and
Please do.
Yeah, we can go into many relevant tangents, really relevant tangents. But listeners and viewers, you got up this far, you can pause at this time and go back through a lot of this, because there's a lot of gold in what Aaron's sharing. And for some of you, it might be new listening. It might be new to your ears, or you might be like picking up on something like, what does that mean? Like, follow that curiosity. I really encourage it. I love how you put in there not the new age sort of fluffy stuff. There's a lot of that stuff going around. I think I'm going to do a specific podcast on that coming up. I've got a fantastic guest around a lot of the distortions that are happening with that. But the segue I want to go into, man, like, let's talk about, like, you've been like helping people with something that I think is like a fucking brilliant idea, but it's not an idea anymore because you're doing it.
Yes. And let me segue. Yes, let me segue, because I want to just put it into some context, because I was a new ager, and I have no shame in admitting this, because what I see is, like, I was simply at a more egoic state of consciousness, and my ego attached itself to spiritual concepts, and I was just simply at a lower stage of development. It's just, I roll my eyes. It's like the coolest thing to do is to shit on new agers in the spiritual community. But it's just people just opening to their spiritual path, and may not have the courage just yet to really go into the darkness and find out, like, what's really going on in reality, and the real importance of the somatic healing, which we've spoken about. And so this actually leads in perfectly, because in my new agey phase, like, it was, and I was in a more egoic phase of life, and it was about, like, my service to self, and really giving my magician the best opportunity to manifest, like, abundance and lots of money and all that. And it was a phase of life, and I feel like I've come back to earth. I'm not like up out here in the love and light, and I can manifest because I'm an aspect of God, which I can, but there's certain laws we've got to abide by, universal law, and I've come back to earth in a place of service, and seeing a gap, not just in the market, but in people's thinking, in people's perspectives. And yeah, Lawns to Lunch is so much more about than building garden beds. It's about really inspiring people to think differently and to have hope for the future, because so many issues that are plaguing our society can be fixed. Think about health, cost of living, community, the environment. And I want to share, like, how this vision dropped in. I was literally in this room here. Kaizen, my son, was about 6 weeks old. We were just going into lockdowns. People were panic buying in the supermarket stores. And I was looking out over the street and just saw all these bare lawns. And I thought, just imagine if all those lawns were garden beds. There wouldn't be any of this panic. And I thought, we could just all turn our lawns into lunch. And I was like, geez, that's a cool business idea. Anyway, I sat on this idea for 2 years. And yeah, it was about 8 months ago, I decided that it's time. it's time to actually bring this to the world, because yes, I have my service with my queen where we work with couples with intimacy, and I have some other streams of income that, you know, are a little bit inconsistent, but it was about like recognizing what are my gifts, what are my passions, how do I want to inspire the world and be of more service. And that's how Lawns to Lunch was birthed. And so, yeah, I've been building veggie garden beds, I've been building hot houses, spreading the idea and the thought of turning bare lawns into productive gardens. It's as simple as that. I'm not an expert on nutrition, but I know that organic is so much better, like with no pesticides, with no herbicides, glyphosate. One of the reasons I found out that I was depressed as a teenager is because I spent 12 months on antibiotics because I had constant tonsillitis. Little did I know I was absolutely destroying my gut, and that when our gut flora is deteriorated, there is like ample evidence to show that that affects our mental health. Yes, I was going through a rough period of time. There's a lot of dynamics, but that was also contributing to it. And so as I've gone into more about nutrition and like I've been wanting to provide the best for my son when he was on the boob and having the milk, like how do I get as much iron into that? I learned like the importance of combining like beta carotene, so orange foods, with the iron so that the body can absorb it more. And I started to learn that, you know, when a plant grows in soil that's lacking in nutrients, it will still grow, but instead of having those key minerals and nutrients, it will just have empty calories. And so we look to big agriculture where they're just pumping massive amounts of fertilizer, which is just super high in nitrogen, they're making these big products, but I don't have to convince anyone that there's hardly any life in a lot of the food in the big supermarkets. Like I remember when I was living in Darwin and I was just dying for some fresh food. And I'd go to the supermarket. I was just like going around like there was no life force. And I know for me, like if I want to be of, you know, high service, be able to provide for my family, not just materially, but emotionally, I've got to be in my energy, in my power, in my vibrant self. And in my experience, no supplement outweighs food that you've grown yourself. Like when you've grown that from a seed, you've watered it, you've tended to it. For me, my morning ritual is going out and just walking around the garden, just seeing how are things going. Yeah, you know what I mean?
I'm the same, and it's been like the launch. I've done that here. I just felt like I needed to do it. I've got a huge yard, so all the sides of the yards, I've got garden beds and everything like that. And on the supermarket thing, I knew this ages ago too, but sometimes I do fall into the habit of seeing like something that's nice and green or big and orange and juicy. I'm like, oh wow, that must be nice, and yet you eat it, and it's like I'd rather go to the market and get the one that's got like the scars on it and the wear and that, and you eat it, and it's like, I know that's full of you can tell.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff at the supermarket's like cold storage shit as well. Like they keep that stuff in a cold storage for months on end. And when the season's in, oh, it's mandarin season.
Yeah.
The last fucking season. But
they're picked when they're not ripe. They're not nutrient dense.
Yeah. And I think I love how you segue from your new agey phase into this too. That was just amazing.
Well, it's true. I went to write a content piece about it, about coming back down to earth, and I'm just don't have as much cares around people knowing my story anymore. So
I was going to
I
say,
like half wrote a post.
That's been my biggest like breakthrough of the last few years too, is being back in my body or being back with my feet on the ground and simplifying things. So I loved how you shared that. But the Lawns to Lunches thing, man, like well done on acting on the ideas. A lot of people out there that they get these great ideas. I have a couple of friends that have phenomenal ideas, but they've got hundreds of them and it takes them a long time to act. So I'm just saying well done on you for acting on this. And I know that there's been some like doubts and everything that come with going like this. And how do I get this to people? How do I like market it? What do I do? But how have you found, you mentioned in there about valuing community. And this is the key, I think, to this. I've really found in the last 18 months to 2 years, coming back to communities really served me and my businesses. And if you measure it in monetary, it's been fantastic. But the people I'm helping, it's been on a community level. Like what you're doing, and I think I've mentioned this to you, it's like at your doorstep. It's community. It's a face-to-face thing.
Yeah.
How are you finding that?
Amazing. I'm working for just such awesome people, like people that understand I'm a dad, that my priority is still my son. They've been flexible. And the community building is like just so important. And one of the gifts of the pandemic is highlighted the absolute necessity to know your neighbors and to have a connection with them. And because I don't think we're out of the woodwork yet with the planned demolition of Western society. I think there's still more to come around the monetary system, the food system. And so I just want to bring hope back to people. And yeah, the community is really important. And just to go back to, the whole, how does this fit in with who I am? It's about like showing up as that, again, that divine father principle, to go back to the start of our conversation of having a sense of purpose and mission that's beyond my family structure. Greer's finishing up her Ayurvedic wellness coaching this year and is about to launch her Ayurmama work in helping people with nourishing themselves. And so there's going to be, this complementary ways that we show up as individuals, with me growing the food and then Greer in the nourishing, the cooking side of it. It goes beyond just cooking. Like there's a whole depth of self-nourishment with self-care practices and that sort of thing, which is the very feminine divine mother essence that she's about to step out into the world into. And then we come together and we're going to be offering Tantra for parents, because we see the absolute necessity for the family structure to be coherent. There needs to be that eros, that love and harmony shared between mother and father, and that it's not prioritized enough in our current culture. And we as men have not been taught how to utilize our sexual energy in an appropriate and functional way. And I'm just as passionate about that work as well, and that's something we'll bring to the world, but it's one step at a time. We know what we're here for. We know the steps ahead for us. It's about patience, just doing the step that's presented to us. And so that's how Launch to Lunch is going to fit into my larger purpose as well. And I want to grow this thing. Like my vision is to have one Launch to Lunch garden bed on every single street in Hobart, because I honestly believe that's possible. If we can make it cool to grow your food, like just have it.
Man, if you give a free Tantra session in the front yard, well, it might be a bit of a marketing ploy. But no.
Who knows how that will unfold. But I wouldn't put it past us to make love with food and cacao.
Cacao works well. Cacao into any product right now, it's the in thing, proper cacao. Yeah, anyway,
real stuff.
No, I love this, man. And we could even dive into many things. And you did mention like the world. We've got a long way to go with the world stuff and all that sort of thing. Yeah. And if you're listening in or you're viewing in or you're new to the podcast, please definitely go back to the episodes with Lukey Mikic on the financial stuff and the markets and everything like that. I'll be having him on again, probably in the next episode, I think. Very, very relevant. And that's what I love about the men in my network. They are in their genius, and the men that I've connected with, and I'm doing my best to highlight on this podcast. Like this episode today has been epic, Aaron, because you've weaved in so much magic, but it's all in alignment. Yeah. It's all like coming back to the intent of what we're talking about. It's
about grounded spirituality. Like, just to wrap it all up, like I've talked about the Christ consciousness and blah, blah, blah. Is it really about grounded spirituality, which is about living in unity with your fellow brothers and sisters and men? And that's why community is so important. And we can support one another as a community through food and growing the food and having our children raised in a healthy, conscious way where they're connected to the planet, they're connected to the food they're eating. We can actually bring back ritual and festival and celebration, and actually have a Christmas where we're celebrating the abundance of food, and actually evolve out of that materialistic consumerism that's, you know, degrading the planet as well. We don't have to necessarily throw out the baby with the bathwater with these old systems, but we can again evolve them into something that's more nourishing and wholesome. And
it's interesting you brought up Christmas there at the end there. I'm having a giant amanita mushroom as my Christmas tree this year.
That's so
throwing
awesome.
out the baby with the bathwater, but throwing out a bit of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you know, we've got to create our own parallel structures and systems, and that's, you know, where Luke in his genius with the crypto stuff, and you're in your genius there too, Steve. And really, it comes down to us like getting out of our boxes that we call our home, and going and saying g'day to your neighbor across the fence, and sharing in your produce.
Yeah. And what you're doing with Lawns to Lunches, man, it is fantastic. I love the idea. It's it is something that I think the last few years it's like created that solution, and I'm glad that it dropped into your realm, man, because there's no better man that can do it, because you're like got that embodiment, that understanding. And I'm excited to see where it goes, not only in the next 12 months and seeing how it branches out over the next coming years.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to wrap it up now. We could chat for hours. This has been an amazing episode. I do have a question to finalize this. Couple of questions. First, where do you want people to go for Lawns to Lunches to get in contact with you?
Check out my Facebook page, Lawns to Lunch, or Instagram, Lawns to Lunch. I'm just keeping my socials very simple at the moment. Not investing too much energy into it, as again, it's about grounded, practical solutions. So most of my time is spent offline these days. And yeah, follow me, share the love, share the message. Like, this is so much more than just, you know, my business. This is about inspiring a revolution of re-gardening the planet.
Oh, is that the company line, man?
No, that's something I'll have to.
I'll give you a clip. My team can give you the clip of that and use it in your marketing.
All right.
That was epic. One last question. This is the final one. How the fuck do I keep these bugs off my broccolini?
Oh, which ones are they?
Eh?
Are they the aphids?
I don't know what they are. I go out one night and I'm walking around the garden. They look great. Next morning they're gone. But they've got all these little black bugs on them. I'm like, I think they're working in cahoots with grasshoppers and caterpillars.
You're in your climate, man. I'm not sure what it is. What I recognized when I was up in your place is you have a whole different set of challenges up in your climate, which is completely different to down here in the deep south of Hobart, Tasmania. We've got our own little challenges here with climate and bugs and stuff that I did not recognize what was going on up there.
I'm still working it out, man. When the floods smashed us last year, I felt like I was back in Cairns. Yeah. But that's an answer that qualifies for your question. So I'm just going to wait for Lawns to Lunches to come to the Northern Rivers in New South Wales, and then I will ask. Just like Jim's Mowing expanded, I'm going to see Lawns to Lunches, little trucks and trailers everywhere, and I'll just...
That's the vision, bro. That's the vision. We want to be bigger than Jim's Mowing because there's going to be no more lawns.
There you go. Love it, brother. Thank you so much for being on the Wild Man Revolution podcast today. Looking forward to having you back on again. There's many things that we can share and add you with, and love what you're doing in the world. Thank you.
It's an honor and pleasure, Steve. Thanks, brother.
I can hear the demons call when they do what they do, and now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view.